Hello YouTubers, it's me, Angryjon, and yes, I am the special guest in this video.
And this is Kevin Lee, and I'm the one who's posting this thing on my main account.
Yes.
So, we're doing a movie review of Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Beyond Time, or unless you want to be a weeaboo, Super Fusion Bonds that Transcended Time.
Long ass title.
So before we start the film, we got a lot of discussion. We have a discussion to go through first.
Let's talk about the extra footage. Apparently there was supposed extra footage for the movie. And for the Japanese version of the movie, it was a Zexal preview. Of course, I've heard that the original release had a recap, but I'm not 100% sure on that. In the US version, instead of a Zexal preview, thank goodness, we got a recap instead. But there was a slight error they've made. Would you care to explain, Nephi?
Everybody knows who Merrick is.
Of course.
In the original Japanese version, he was revenge against Tim because he believed that he killed his father. In the dub version, he wants the Millennium Puzzle to rule the world for whatever reason. But for whatever reason, in the extra footage, apparently they put back his original intention, not his dub intention, which is kind of weird.
Yep, weird as shit. Of course, if the recap is from the Japanese version on its original release, that would make sense because they were probably literally translating everything. And maybe that was a slip. Or 4Kids was acknowledging the fact that Yami Merrick wanted to kill him. But anyways, who cares about the recap? The recap sucked. 10 minutes after the recap is finally over, we finally get to see the movie. And you're like, what is this movie about? And then, BAM! It hits you with a plot that's confusing as hell, but it's easy to navigate to us. There's a time traveler, known as Paradox, and he's from the future! The future! But anyways, he goes back in Yusei's timeline to steal Yusei's famous ace card, Stardust Dragon. But why? As it turns out, he's been stealing other dragons as well, such as Rainbow Dragon and of course Blue Eyes White Dragon. But why is he doing all this? Well, he needed them to get rid of one Satan. Maximilian Pegasus. Pegasus J. Crawford if you're a weeboo. So, Yusei has to chase after him, and he does so with the Crimson Dragons' help. And he ends up in Jaden's timeline. So they meet, and they're like, oh yeah, we're good buddies. Yep, we're good buddies. So they try to figure out where Paradox went next. So they go on the internet. Ah yes, the beloved internet. And they find out that history has changed again. So they have to go back in time to prevent their timeline from collapsing. So they go to, guess what? Yugimoto's timeline. Which, confusing yet? Well, it's about to get more confusing. So Paradox succeeds in his plan and kills everybody except Yugimoto. But fortunately for Yugi, Yusei and Jaden rescue him, and they send him 30 minutes before the attacks happen. Ugh. But that's confusing.
That's a short ass 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's only like we wasted a lot of minutes trying to get this story across, and then finally they meet Paradox 3-on-1. And they realize that Paradox is doing this to save the world, or save the future in general. So they must stop him from accomplishing this. So that technically makes him an anti-hero. So of course, spoiler alert, Paradox loses at the end, and everything is saved. Well, that's the movie in a nutshell.
5 positive things!
Well, let's talk about the positives of this movie. Let's talk about the animation first. What do you think of the animation?
I actually love the animation because it's really the classic animation that Yu-Gi-Oh is supposed to have. But unlike the original Duel Monsters series, at least two of them, one of them has the classical animation, the other one has a decent animation. Everything else looks really shit. But it still has a decent animation to it.
Fortunately, they didn't make the animation so craptastic like Season 4 and Season 5 of Duel Monsters. They instead went with one of the best animation directors, and had a few other good, decent animation directors among them. Hera is a great example of this. Hera's not the main guy, but he was one of the animation directors. And the movie looks beautiful. It's like high definition, like holy shit. You can see every single detail they try to put in this movie, and it worked. Well, there are some slight animation mistakes, but those were fixed in the Japanese DVD. Unfortunately, they were not fixed in the UK DVDs, but they're pretty small mistakes that you wouldn't notice them anyways.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the script. And this is dub-wise. The script, for the most part, was not poorly adapted like you would think. You'd think they would crap out on the script, but actually, they did a decent job, adapting it. They got the story right. I mean, they got everything right. The only problem I have is, well, the jokes. I'm going to get to that on the negatives later on. But for the most part, the script is on par. Seriously. They kept a lot of things I didn't think they were going to keep. What do you think of that?
No, well, at least a minor nitpick is when Autumn suggested to Yusei to go first, but in the Japanese version, Yusei made that suggestion, but, well, at least it's faithful in that direction, but it's just
it didn't make any sense. Well, let's talk about the voice acting. This is Japanese-wise and US-wise. Well, Japanese, what can you say? They combined the three Japanese actors together. I mean, it's been a while since we heard Yugi's original voice, and so was Jaden's. So it was like pleasing to our ears to hear them once again. Same could be said for Dan Green, Matthew Charles, and Greg Abbey, like doing this movie together. It was like awesome.
Now, I'm surprised with Dan Green's emotion when his grandfather got killed, because that is the first time I ever heard a sense of emotion in a 4Kids production. Well, it's more of a dub production, but
yeah, they were full on with the emotions here. I mean, the voice director was Darren Dunstein, who of course did Pegasus in this movie. And he did a great job here because the voice acting was pretty good in the dub. I mean, let's talk about Paradox, especially his dub voice. He's voiced by Son Shamel, who you might know him as Goku. He's basically an evil British version of Goku in this movie. And you know what? I'm fine with that. His voice is actually quite fitting, if you ask me. It may not be as good as the Japanese voice, but 4Kids could have really screwed this up, but they did a great choice here. Sean Shamel fitted this character perfectly.
Hey John, you know what would be funny?
What?
If Lil Karibo made the parody film and they decided to have Masako X to play as him.
That would actually work. I wouldn't be too surprised if they went that direction.
Okay. Number 4. This has possibly the first Yu-Gi-Oh film to actually show people dying.
Yep.
Compared to, what did they show in the anime again?
Glowing stuff. Glowing stuff. Ugh.
Now, as I mentioned before, this is probably the first Yu-Gi-Oh film where people die. Well, actually second, but
It's implied, although the news article they were reading in the dub says missing, you can still tell they're dead.
Yep.
It's understandable why they would consider him missing because there's a pile of rubble, so yeah, And not to mention that our news article said tragedy, and of course that's a word associated with debt.
Oh,
So.
and also, we also see Pegasus in not just the Japanese version, but the English version where he got crushed to death.
Yeah, we saw him get killed. The only edits in this film that were done was translating the Japanese kanji to English text, and the cards were USified, which means they look like the ones from the dubbed show, but I'm not complaining about that. And also, no cleavage edits either, which is an absolute surprise. Let's see, Art Magician Girl has her cleavage, and so does Aki, or Akiza in the dub.
Well, she's gonna have more fanboys.
And Yubel is still a herm in this one. In the US version, she was changed into a female, complete female. I'm glad they kept her as a herm again. That actually made the character quite unique. I mean, I'm a bit freaked out, but I'm not complaining. But still, there aren't as many edits as you'd think there would be. And the edits they did do are understandable. They just translated the language, that's it. But they kept everything else intact. Even Dark Magician Girls is a pentagon on her jewel.
And number 5, John, will you explain this?
Oh, I'll explain this. This movie satisfied us as Yu-Gi-Oh! Nerds. I mean, it had lots of things that made us, like, cream our pants, basically. We had Karibo making an appearance. Like, holy shit. We had Dark Magician Girl talking, which we haven't seen since the original Duel Monsters, technically. And plenty of other things. And of course, Blue Eyes and Red Eyes in the same shot. I mean, I know that they're the Malefic versions, but still. How many people have creamed their pants when they saw that? Both Red Eyes and Blue Eyes in the same shot. That's unbelievable. Not to mention, Rainbow Dragon makes an appearance in this film. That also made me cream my pants a bit.
Although, I still find it inconsistent for Dark Magician Girl to talk when they didn't do so until the final season of Yu-Gi-Oh! But still.
But yeah, I'm not complaining. And let's get on to the negatives.